Hi everybody. So welcome to this tutorial. This is just a short tutorial on building the crawl lines for video content in Instagram and other social platforms. You know, the lines that sort of crawl along the edge of video content to show the amount of time that's elapsed and the amount of time that's remaining in the video. So I'm aware that some of the people watching this might not be my own students, so I'll keep it try and keep it quite sort of straightforward in terms of if you've not used After Effects before. So the first thing we need to do then is, this is After Effects here. I'll sort of talk you through, if you've not used After Effects, I'll talk you through some of the panels very quickly once we get into it. The first thing you need to do is you need to click on New Composition. Okay, now, oh, there we go. First of all, close down the this bit. New Composition. Now here's the important bit, right? You've got to make sure, because it's for Instagram, one assumes you probably want square footage. You don't have to, of course, you know, but most of the time when we're talking about social platforms, you know, we're thinking about using square footage. So what you will need to do is make sure that the width and height are both 1080 pixels, because that's the resolution that Instagram likes best. Okay, and also if you come to your frame rate and it says anything other than 30, I would change it to 30, because I assume most of the stuff you're going to be uploading will probably have been shot on a mobile phone, and most of those tend to shoot in 30 frames per second. So here you are, 1080, 1080 and 30. Once you've done that, click OK. So this is After Effects. Okay, if you're not familiar with it, this is where we store all of our the clips that we're going to be using in After Effects, and this is where we do our effects. This is where we control the clips down here on the edge of our timeline, because this is our timeline here, and this is where we do a lot of the kind of controls for those clips. This is the viewer, obviously the monitor, which is where we're seeing what we're doing, and over here this is where we sort of source effects from and things like that. So it's very, you know, quite a straightforward tool. After Effects is actually an incredibly powerful program. Like a lot of things in the Adobe suite, it will do everything. It just might not do everything as quickly and efficiently as some of the more sort of dedicated specific programs for certain things, but it will get you there. You know, it's a great program to learn. So anyway, I'm assuming most of you might have used After Effects before, so I won't go over it too much, but yeah, I mean, do feel free to email me if you have any problems with any of this. So what we're going to do first of all then is we're going to bring in some footage. So this is a piece of footage that I've filmed. You need to have that on the project tab first of all, rather than the effects tab. So this is a bit of footage that I filmed for one of my Instagram tutorials. So it's just a standard vertical filmed bit of video on my phone. Okay, most of the time on your phone obviously you'll be filming vertically, so that's fine, but you can also film horizontally, it'll still work just as fine. What you're going to do is you're going to pick this up and you're going to drag it down. Now, a lot of people, if they're familiar with After Effects, the first thing you'll do is you'll drop it into here to create a new composition which suits the footage. Problem is, if you do that, your composition will be tall and narrow, which is not what we want. Okay, so we're going to go back to our original composition, and we're actually just going to take our clip down here like so and drag it down there, and now we've got a square bit of like the actual resolution of the video is going to be square, and we can see how our original source video is overlapping at the top and bottom. Okay, so the first thing we can do is, you see this little arrow here, we can open up this little arrow to find out the properties of the video, and we can go into transform. Now the way that After Effects works really is a bit more complicated than this, but in principle it's about these things, which are stopwatches. And stopwatches, all they do is you turn on a stopwatch and it creates a keyframe on your timeline, and you're basically saying, I want the video to have this value at this time, and then you move on and you change that value, and then the video will change accordingly. I know, and we'll be using those a bit later on, but for now we don't need our stopwatches. What we need is we need to adjust our position just to make sure that it's nice and square within the frame. So what we can do is we can drag this up and down like that, for example. We can even move it left to right as well if we want to, but we're not going to do that at the moment because obviously it's nice and centered. But we can move it up and down to make sure that the footage is where we want it to be. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is, once we've got that sorted, we're going to look at how long our bit of video content is. If it's longer than a minute, then it's going to go onto Instagram TV. Okay, so that'll be like, you'll see a preview of it, but then you'll see the rest of it on Instagram TV. So for most of your posts, if you want them, certainly if you want them to be in the post section on Instagram, you're going to want to keep it under a minute. Okay, in which case then this bit of video content here is about 59 seconds, just over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little blue tab here, and I'm just going to adjust that so that it's on the end of my footage, which means when I'm playing my footage through and I get to the end, it'll just snap straight back to the start, and I don't have any kind of overhang of like parts of the video where there's no footage, it's just black. Okay, so there's our workspace. So it's around 59 seconds long, just about. Okay, and what we're now going to do is just add some crawl lines to this video. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come up to Layer at the top here, and we're going to go to New, and we're going to go to Solid. And in this Solid, I'm going to just give my video a nice white background for my crawl line. So I'm going to drag this little dot over here up to the top right, left-hand corner to give it nice white, and then I'm going to go there and click OK. And this is my white solid here. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drag this below my video, and what that means in the stack is that the video is basically on top of the white solid at the moment. But what we're now going to do is, if we open up the properties again for our video, remember how we opened up the little arrow and then we've got the little transform here. What I'm now going to do is I'm now going to go into scale and drag that back to about sort of 97%, something like that. Okay. And now what we can see is we can see the edges of our footage. Now, some people will just use the next step of the technique I'm going to show you, but to me what that does is it just crops a little bit of your video out, which you might not want. So I reduce the scale first, and then I add the lines at the top and bottom, as you'll see. So here's our white lines at the sides. Okay, what we're now going to do is I'm going to go up to Layer and Solid again at the top here, and this time I'm going to choose a nice bright color like this bright kind of poppy green, okay, so I can see it nice and easily. And what I'm going to do with this green solid, we're not going to use this actually in the video, we're just using it as a guide. I'm going to open up that little arrow, open up the transform, and we're now going to scale that back to 97%. Okay, and what that then means, and you can, if you're struggling to get it, you can just click on it and type 97 and you'll get the same effect. Okay, and what it's now done is it's reduced that size down to the same size as the video content was, except we can still see the bit of video content at the top and bottom. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come into this tool here, the rectangle tool, and all we're going to do is on your mouse you can zoom in like so. Now there's an important thing you need to know about After Effects here if you've not used it before. If you zoom in and you then try and drag your footage so you can see it, you're going to change the footage. So what you have to do is you have to hold down the space bar and then move the footage, okay, and then you can actually see what's going on at the top. So what we're now going to do is I'm going to make sure that my clip is highlighted here, because that's the bit I want to cut out. I'm going to get my rectangle tool, and all I need to do is just bring my rectangle across like that so that it lines up with the green square like so. So I've got those edges, okay. And what's going to happen now, what's happened here, you can see this is a yellow box and it's created this yellow mask. And all I'm going to do is in the add box, I'm just going to click subtract, and now what that's done is it's taken that bit of my video content away. If I now hold down spacebar, move the content up so I can see the bottom bit, I'm going to do the same thing. I've got another mask again, my rectangle tool, I've got my video clip highlighted, and I'm just going to build another rectangle, line it up with the green like so, and then I'm going to click subtract, and there is my white border. Okay, so what I'm now going to do is I'm going to come to my green solid. I might keep that for later, so I'm just going to turn the eye off so you don't see it anymore. And now if I zoom out ever so slightly and move my footage around, there we are. There's my footage with a nice white border. So how do we add the crawl lines? Well, what we're now going to do is we're going to click away from that so we can see our image again. And now we're going to come up to Layer at the top, a new solid, okay? And we're going to choose a color for this. So this is going to be the color of our crawl lines. So for me, I might go for just a, I don't know, I'm going to go for a nice sort of royal blue or something like that, okay? And I'm going to drag this underneath my footage. Okay, so that's what the crawl lines are going to look like at the end. And this bit now is where the stopwatches come in, because we need to tell this solid that we want it to move around inside the image. Okay, and what we're going to do, we're going to make sure our playhead's right at the beginning of our footage. We're going to open up this blue solid here and open up the transform control, and then we're going to turn on our position stopwatch. So that's going to create this keyframe here, and we're basically going to give that a value. We're going to say this is what I want you to be doing at this point. And so I'm going to move my position down like so, that, and then I'm going to move it down like so, and you can be precise about this if you want to. I mean, I'm doing this for quickness, but I'm going to zoom in, remember spacebar, move it. So I'm going to just position this so that it kind of lines up with the corner of my video, like so. Okay, and that's the position we want it to be in at the start. All right, so now if I zoom out, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want this blue line to grow as we go around the image. So the obvious thing to do would be to just move it across to the far corner, but the problem with that is that we're not going to see it on certain, it's not going to operate correctly. For example, imagine that I'm going to do this over here, but imagine that this is the end of our footage. I'll sort of show you the effect that we get. Because obviously we need to do something else to it first. So our video is 59 seconds long, just about. So I'm going to come to roughly halfway through, so about here, halfway through the video, just about. Okay. And I'm now going to move my blue solid back up to like so. Okay. So I'm just going to move it up so it's nice and okay, and so that looks fine because that looks like our crawl video now has moved around behind our video. But what happens, of course, is that actually as it grows, so those crawl lines look fine for now, don't they? Okay, but imagine that this was the end of our video, right? Then suddenly the top and side happen in only a few frames, and that's not what we want. We want it to get to the top and then start to grow along the top and side, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to get our blue square up to here, okay, and now the next thing we're going to do is going to go up to layer at the top, new solid, and now we're going to pick another white solid, and basically with this white solid we're going to do the same thing but in reverse. So at this exact same point we're going to close down our blue solid now. Don't move your playhead so that it's at the same, remember that keyframe that I talked about. Here's that keyframe that we just made, okay, which is the position of the blue solid over here in the corner. And we're going to make sure that our playhead is on that same dot. Close down this solid and open up the new white one that we've just made. And we're going to open up the transform and turn on that position stopwatch. So we've made ourselves a keyframe for this white solid. And what we're now going to do is we're going to move this solid so that it is across like so and up like that. But because this white solid is above the blue solid, as the blue solid reaches the far side we still can't see it because this white solid is in the way. If I turn the video off just quickly, you can see what I'm talking about. So what's happened is we basically offset this white solid slightly, so as the blue solid grows it appears as though it's just two lines that are growing. And remember, when it got to the top and the edge it basically covered those sections very, very quickly. Well, it's now not doing that because we can't see those because of the white solid that's in the way. So we're going to get to this point then, turn our video back on, and now all that we need to do is move our playhead right to the end like so, and do the same thing as we did before, and we're going to just take our white solid and the position of it, and as we add as we change the values of this, it's created another keyframe, like as you can see, and we're basically going to move our solid over to here, and I'm just going to zoom in on that just to make sure that it lines up correctly, okay, because we basically want this to go completely off the square like that, okay, at that point. So what we're going to do now then, basically what's happened is we've moved that white solid completely off our work area. This is the old bits of video that we don't need, okay, and as we move our playhead back we should see that that white solid is now moving into our video. Do you see that? And then as we get to this keyframe, the blue solid that we made earlier starts to move out. Okay, but it looks like it's crawling along just the left hand side and the bottom because it's behind that white solid that's on top. Okay, so there is a more complicated way of doing this as well if you want to add in moving content into your, like if you want to animate a photograph moving from side to side or something like that. But for now, this is a nice basic way of producing the sort of crawl line effect in After Effects. Okay, so what we're now going to do is we're going to stop that. So that's our footage that's finished, and now what we do, the way we get it out of After Effects is we now have to go up to Composition and we add to Render Queue. Like see. Okay, so once you've added it to the render queue, what I tend to do is I tend not to try to put it into a format for Instagram coming out of After Effects, because it just doesn't, it's quite hard to sort of output it in a format that Instagram likes straight out of After Effects. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this video content into the Adobe Media Encoder and actually compress it down so it's ready for After Effects use. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go output 2, and we're going to open that up, and I'm going to give it a name, James 1, something like that. And I'm going to save it. You can go into your settings if you want to, but I mean, what tends to happen is it defaults to this animation codec. And what it means is it's going to output quite a large file size, but that's okay. We can sort that out in a minute. The only other thing you might just want to look at is make sure that the audio is on, so it's actually outputting the audio from your video as well. And once it's done that, then you just click render, and my computer is quite fast, so it's going to render that quite quickly. So while it's doing that, I'm now going to open up Adobe Media Encoder, and then I'll show you the codec that I use to get it into After Effects. Sorry, to get it into Instagram. Okay. Cool. So what we're going to now do is, once we've done that, this is Media Encoder, which has just opened up. So I'm going to go back into After Effects. I'm just going to quit this now, just so it's a bit more obvious what I'm looking at. So I'm not going to save it, but you might want to save yours, obviously. Okay. So what we're now going to do is, here's my video, James 1, that I just outputted, and at the moment you can see, even though it's a minute of footage, it's actually 5 gig. Okay, yeah, it's pretty large because of the animation codec, but we're going to sort that out, so don't worry about that. So we're going to drag this into Media Encoder, okay, and then drop it in there like that. And what we're going to do is, here's our video. Media Encoder is basically a platform that Adobe uses for transcoding and compressing video footage. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to open up the settings for this video, and we're going to make sure that our the codec that we're going to use is one that supports this square format, because a lot of codecs don't. So you quite often you'll end up with the square footage in the middle of a rectangular shaped bit of video, and you'll end up with black bars on either side, which is no good. Okay, so what I recommend is you go into the H.264 format. Okay, you can go to a high bit rate if you want to. You don't have to if you want to kind of scale it down even more. But as you can see, we've gone from 5 gig to 76 meg, and that'll be completely fine for Instagram. Okay, and then the only other important thing you need to make sure is that when you're reading the summary and the output, just make sure that it says 1080 by 1080. Because then once it's 1080 by 1080, then it's square, and it's the same format that we were using in Instagram previously. Okay, so what we're now going to do is I'm just going to go, I might add maximum render quality, depends, it's not added anything to the file size, and I'm just going to click OK. And what you should get once you click start, because you can click this little green triangle now, and now you can see that the render is beginning. So the transcode is beginning. Now don't be worried by this these black bars on either side. It looks like it's outputting it into a standard video 1920 by 1080 format, okay, but it isn't actually. It's outputting it in 1080 by 1080. That's just the viewer window. So what you should see is, once the render is complete, then it should output a nice small H.264 file in a square format, which will be perfect for Instagram. So there we go. And as you can now see, if I click on this and open it up, it's just in a nice square format. The only thing I would say that I've noticed is that when you undertake this process, it does tend to wash out some of the color from your video. So you might just want to kind of ensure that you've given your footage a bit of color pop, turned up the saturation or something like that a little bit before you do this process, because it can sometimes wash it out. Otherwise though, all looking good. So then you just drag this into your photos if you're on a Mac. So I would just open up my photos now and drag that into photos, and then that should transfer it onto your phone or whatever, and then you can upload to Instagram at your heart's content. So I hope that's helped. As I say, if you're unfamiliar with Instagram, or you get to a point in this process and you've found a point where you just got stuck, do email me. You can find my email, just jdolby, Dolby with an A, jdolby@glossacuk. Do email me and let me know where you're at, and then I'll do my best to try and sort you out. Okay, other than that, have fun. Hope you enjoy the media takeover week, and yeah, enjoy.